are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Tuesday, April 9th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to talk about Aaron Donald, him talking about T.JWatt and Puka Nacua, his comments, get into that, give you my thoughts on it. In the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Giants, some recent comments from General Manager Joe Schoen regarding the draft, whether they're going to take a quarterback or address another need of the team, as well as talking about Darren Waller, because he's still kind of contemplating on whether he's going to come back or if he is going to retire. So we'll get into that as well. We'll also talk about Derek Carr. He had a Q&A, so I wanted to look at some of the things that he had to say in that, talk about the Saints and what to expect from them in 2024. And then in the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the UFL. We're going to talk about that. I want to talk about Jake Bates, the kicker, who made a couple of 60-yard field goals these past couple of weeks. So I wanted to get into that, kind of just talk about the positives of the UFL and having that around. So, yeah, I know I said we were going to do a UFL segment. Well, that's going to be towards the end of the show as that continues. I think we're going into week 3 of that now. But I did want to talk about Bates because, like I said, he's been making some headlines. So we'll get into that in the final part of the show. But let's get into the first topic, which is discussing Aaron Donald talking about two studs in T.JWatt and Puka Nacua. So I want to get into first T.JWatt, what he had to say about him. So obviously Aaron Donald is now retired. He's been making appearances on podcasts. So I believe this is where he was making the comments on both of these players. But he talked about T.JWatt, talked about how T.JWatt, to him, is the best defensive player in the NFL at this current moment. And if you remember yesterday, we did talk about Micah Parsons and how you put him, Myles Garrett, T.JWatt, you kind of look at those three guys as the top three, arguably, in the NFL when it comes to being the best defensive player. He praised Watt's consistent performance, mentioning his high sack numbers, interceptions, and touchdowns. And yeah, T.JWatt has had some touchdowns. You know, we saw him have a touchdown, well, in week 2 against the Browns, but also, you know, I know I've mentioned this on the show, the playoff game against the Chiefs where you thought, hey, the Steelers are up 7-0, good for them, and then things kind of fell apart after that. But he also acknowledged other defensive players like Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett, like I said, but emphasized Watt's dominance. Watt led the NFL in sacks in 2023 for the third time in 4 seasons and tied his career-high tackles. He's been a Defensive Player of the Year finalist 4 times and won the award once in 2021. And Aaron Donald did say that he believes that Watt was snubbed for Defensive Player of the Year in some seasons and deserved more recognition. And many people would say last year now, Myles Garrett winning that award in 2023, many people felt that T.JWatt should have won it, but that was not the case. So that's why Donald feels that way. Also, with T.JWatt's contract, he has 2 years remaining on his current contract with the Steelers and will aim for another Defensive Player of the Year caliber season. And listen, when you're getting praise from Aaron Donald, that's when you know you're doing things right. I mean, Aaron Donald, now that he's retired, I mean, you still put him up there as one of the best defensive players in the league, but now he is retired, so you got T.JWatt and Parsons and Garrett, like I mentioned. And T.JWatt also, the other thing is his impact on the Steelers, because when he's not playing, the Steelers are a completely different team. And I've said this a couple times, well, more than a couple times on the show, that he's the quarterback of the defense. And when he's not playing, like I said, the Steelers are a completely different team. Now, I wanted to look at some of the quotes of Donald, what he had to say. So this is some of the stuff he said. This was on Chris Long's podcast, Green Light with Chris Long. If you want to say that next guy, that defensive player, I would say right now it's T.JWatt. Interceptions every year, touchdowns, his stats are ridiculous every year. I feel like he's that guy to me. From the time I first saw T.JWatt to the last year, he's consistently been dominating in this league. Just a lot of respect for him, and I think he's that guy. And yeah, he has been a Defensive Player of the Year, finalist 4 times, like I said. Won the award once in 2021 after tying the all-time single-season sacks record with 22.5, and that was Michael Strahan's record. And yeah, I mean, he's really been a game wrecker since he's come into the league. And you know, the Steelers, they're looking to finally get off of the schneid and win a playoff game finally, because it's been a long time. And can they do that? We'll have to see. They made some changes this offseason at the quarterback position. So I'm expecting them to at least be somewhat better. But again, you're playing in a loaded division, so but as long as T.JWatt stays healthy, that defense, you know, is going to make an impact. The defense could score points themselves. I mean, like I said, you know, what Aaron Donald was talking about with T.JWatt scoring touchdowns, getting interceptions. He does it all. Gets to the quarterback. So that's just a couple things that he had to say about T.JWatt. Now, the other player that he talked about as well, and I believe it was also on the podcast too, is Puka Nacua. And talked about how Nacua has the potential to achieve unprecedented feats in the NFL if he maintains, you know, his abilities from, his first season. And Nacua set rookie records for receptions and receiving yards with 105 catches for 1,486 receiving yards in the 2023 season, along with 6 receiving touchdowns. Was a 5th-round pick. And got to credit the Rams, because he was a late-round pick, Kyren Williams was a late-round pick, and they became key parts of the Rams offense and big reasons why they were able to make it back to the postseason in 2023. And Nacua really stepped up when Cooper Kupp was out, because if you remember, Cooper Kupp missed the first 4 or 5 games of the season, and then he came back. And you thought, well, now Cooper Kupp is back, Puka Nacua is not going to, do as much with Kupp being back. But that wasn't the case. Puka Nacua still was the best receiver on the team. And now going into next year, if Cooper Kupp is healthy and you got a full season of both of those guys, expect big things for the Rams offense in 2024. And that's another team that I'm looking forward to see, what they're able to do. And again, like I said, you got Kyren Williams, and they brought back DeMarcus Robinson. You still got Matthew Stafford slinging the football. So the Rams offense is going to be good. I worry about the defense because, especially now with who we're talking about, Aaron Donald retiring, that's a big hole that they're going to have to fill. And they have added to the secondary. They signed Darius Williams. They signed Tre'Davious White. So they're hoping that they could stabilize the secondary. But we got to see who steps up rushing the quarterback. And we'll see how they address the defense in the draft, because they're probably going to go defense heavy. So I wanted to look at what he had to say about Aaron Donald had to say about Puka Nacua. So these are some of the things that he had to say. So again, this is still on the Chris Long podcast. You see young guys that play and they fall off a little bit, but for him to stay as poised as he did throughout the season, as far as like he he became kind of a household name as a rookie, and it didn't change. He stayed the same person. He kept doing the same things every single week. And it's like if he stays like that, he stays hungry. And if he wants to be great, in my opinion, I think he could do some things that have never been done in this league. He's just got to keep working. But he was fun to watch. I really enjoyed watching him. All the awards he was able to surpass and break records he was able to break as a rookie. And yeah, like I said, had a big year. Kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I'll be honest, I did not know who he was. I mean, my friends did. Some of my friends did, but I really did not know who he was. And like I said, he really did become a household name. He also, another quote from Donald, "You see a little glimpse of it at camp, but that's camp. I'm one of those guys you've got to show me during game time. From the first game, he was just consistent. Then the Colts game, we ended up going into overtime. He ended up making the game-winning touchdown for us. He's just been a consistent player since day one, and then he just got better and better and better. It's like I didn't expect him to be, the player he was this year. But in my opinion, to be honest with you, for any position, me personally watching, that's probably one of the best rookie performances from any position that I got the opportunity to watch." Again, high praise there from Aaron Donald. And he became a household name as early as week 1. 10 catches for 119 yards against the Seahawks and against the 49ers. 15 catches for 147 yards, 163 yards. And then that was against the Colts. Yeah, because I'm reading the article with Donald's quotes here. And yeah, then Cooper Kupp came back, and he still had 154 yards receiving in a game against the Steelers. Against the Browns, he had 105 yards. Against the Saints in Week 15, he had 164 yards. Even with Kupp coming back, still was productive, and the Rams got something with him. And we'll see what he does now in year 2. Like I said, if you got him and Cooper Kupp healthy, with the Kyren Williams, Matthew Stafford still back there, I think this Rams offense is going to be good again. But I still have my concerns about the defense. And you still got Sean McVay, who's still one of the best coaches in the NFL. So I think the Rams, they're still going to be a competitive team. A team that I think can still compete for a playoff spot. But when you got the 49ers in the division, I think the wild card is your best path at the moment. So that's how I see it. But Aaron Donald praising these two guys, T.JWatt, who was a household name for a while. Puka Nacua has become a household name. And those guys, I expect them to have solid seasons for their respective teams. Both teams that did make the postseason in 2023. And we'll see what happens in 2024. It's going to be tougher. It's going to be tougher, I think, for these two teams. The Steelers, when it comes to the quarterback position, we'll see how Russell Wilson plays with the Steelers. Again, I kind of expect more what you saw in Denver. With the Rams, without Aaron Donald, it's going to be tough to replace that. So, and I think a lot of people will say the Rams defense was the weakness of the team last year. And give the Rams credit, because it looked like that their season wasn't going to go anywhere at one point. But then they, righted the ship, and their offense really got going. And Matthew Stafford started playing like an MVP. And Kyren Williams came back from injury, and they really looked like a different team. So I'm curious to see how they're going to be. Again, I expect them to be a competitive team. It's just I worry about the defense. But again, we got the draft, so we'll see what they do to address the defense there. And then on top of that, with the Steelers, we'll see how they address it as well. I expect them to add a playmaker in the draft. Rams, I think the defense is going to be something that they are going to address with more than just one pick in this upcoming draft, which I think most people would agree with that. So just have to keep an eye on it. But high praise from Aaron Donald. Like I said, if you're getting praise from Aaron Donald, you're doing something right. And these two guys right here, TJ Watt and Puka Nacua, are doing that. Now, obviously, again, Puka Nacua, this is his second year. TJ Watt's been in the league since 2017. So, but, Aaron Donald, when he was playing, probably looked at himself did look at himself as the best defensive player. Now that he's no longer playing. TJ Watt, who a lot of people would say is the best defensive player. He gives him that title. So, but let me know what you guys think about what Aaron Donald had to say. And with that, we are going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about the New York Giants. We'll talk about their draft strategy, some comments that Joe Schoen had about the draft and what the Giants could do. I know we've talked about this on the shows previously. And we'll also talk about Darren Waller and his decision on whether he's going to come back or is he going to retire. So that's what we will get into when we come back. A couple of Giants topics. So, with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows with 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the New York Giants, a couple of Giants topics pertaining to the draft as well as their tight end, Darren Waller. So, getting to the draft stuff first. So, Joe Schoen had some recent comments on the draft, what the Giants could do with their first pick, which is the number 6 overall pick in the draft. And so Joe Schoen, I'll get into the direct quotes, but basically he stated that while the team has evaluated quarterback prospects, they are prepared to address other areas of need with the number 6 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. Schoen emphasized that the Giants have multiple needs to address and are aiming to avoid picking in the top 10 in future drafts. I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, that seems where the Giants have been for the past decade, really. If quarterbacks are selected with the first 4 picks, the Giants would focus on selecting the second best position player available at number 6. Despite indications that the Giants have shown interest in quarterbacks, Schoen clarified that their evaluation process is not solely focused on that position and has been consistent in recent drafts. The Giants have conducted visits and meetings with various quarterback prospects, including Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix Jr., among others. I know Penix, his stock, I think, has kind of been rising recently. And I know teams have concerns over his injury history. So we'll see where he ends up going, whether it's maybe late in the first round or a second-round pick. I think maybe that's kind of where he's going to end up, but we'll see. Because Caleb Williams is going within the first couple of picks. It seems like Jaden Daniels, Drake May. But also, I mean, J.J. McCarthy, his stock has rised up. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you hear the Commanders could take him. I also saw something, and again, this is just a rumor, I on Bleacher Report, that maybe the Patriots don't take a quarterback, and maybe they draft, Marvin Harrison Jr., because right now, they signed Jacoby Brissett, but I don't know. I feel like quarterback is probably what you should be going after. And I feel like that's kind of the same thing with the Giants. But again, the Patriots are up higher. The Giants are number 6. And if, like I just said, if 4 quarterbacks go, then maybe the Giants say, all right, well, we're going to draft the best player available. And the Giants have a lot of needs. I know I've talked about that a lot. You got Daniel Jones, who's still recovering from the torn ACL. That raises speculation about the team's intentions regarding the quarterback position in the draft. I mean, they say that he's still the guy, but again, I think that's also a little bit of a smokescreen where maybe they're going to take a quarterback and then their tune is going to change, but we'll see. And that could be a smokescreen here. So this is what Joe Schoen had to say. He said, "We don't want to be up here again. We don't want to be picking in the top 10. We have multiple needs. We are going into year 3. People assume we're going quarterback, but we have other needs. If the quarterbacks go 1 through 4, then we're getting the second best position player, not quarterback, at 6, which is okay too. That player will really help us." And I think even last year, our quarterback coach was at the C.J. Stroud workout. We spent a lot of time with Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. He said, "We still spend time with those guys, and it's not just for right now, but when they become free agents." Brian Burns, we spent a lot of time with him in the draft process, so you feel comfortable making a trade for a guy. Drew Lock, too. Sam Darnold, we spent a ton of time with because that was the Josh draft. So I guess that means, so Josh Allen, because of course they came for the Bills. I don't know why I think Josh, I thought of Josh. The first Josh I thought of was Josh Rosen, but yeah, they meant Josh Allen. But yeah, I mean, listen, I don't disagree with what Shane has to say because the Giants do have a lot of needs. And I think if the guys that they want get taken before them, the 4 quarterbacks get taken, then I think the next best thing is receiver. And I think you're probably, for the Giants, they probably end up with Malik Neighbors maybe falling to them unless someone trades up. Because you got the Patriots, you got the Commanders, you got the Bears. I think those 3 teams are taking quarterbacks. I know, like I said, I saw a headline that said the Patriots might not take a quarterback. I feel like they're still going to. So those are 3 quarterbacks right there. Then you got the Cardinals as well. They're not going to take a quarterback. They're going to probably take the best receiver available, and that's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., so they're going to get him. And again, someone could trade up and take a quarterback, and then that could leave the Giants with, all right, well, we're going to take a receiver, and that would leave them with Malik Neighbors from LSU. But yeah, the Giants, you got quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line. Those are the 3 needs for this team in this draft. And the Giants don't have their franchise guy moving forward at quarterback. They don't. I don't believe it's Daniel Jones. I've been very consistent with that, and I'm going to continue to say that. I don't believe he's the guy. But the Giants, some people still say that they like him. And have they done wrong by Daniel Jones? Yes, I believe they have. But at the same time, I'm going to sit here and say he's still not the guy. I think they need to go in a different direction. And I like what they're doing on defense. I think the defense, right now the defense is the strength of the team. They really got to fix this offense here. This is why they brought Brian Daboll over, an offensive guy. And right now the offense is the weakness of the team. Now again, the Giants, they didn't, or Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, they didn't inherit this great roster. They really had to overhaul it and move things around and build this team back up. Now, we thought that 2022 was a building block, but it ended up leading to nowhere because 2023, it was just a complete 180 of the progress that they made the previous season. And now, here we are once again with the Giants picking in the top 10. And they have question marks at quarterback. Don't really have a number 1 wide receiver. Don't really have any receivers. And I am kind of disrespecting their receivers a little bit because the receivers that are on the team had an impact with the team in 2022. Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, they had big roles in 2022. Wan'Dale Robinson looks like he's going to be a good player. Jalen Hyatt, let's see how he is with an actual quarterback that could stay healthy. Because they drafted him in 2023. So you got to add to that. And if you add Malik Neighbors, that definitely helps. I think a receiver, if it's not a quarterback, it's going to be a receiver because they desperately need playmakers on this offense. They did address the offensive line in free agency. And I have no doubts that they're going to go out and they're going to address the offensive line in the draft, whether it is with their first pick or whether it's with other picks. They're going to address it for depth. And they've signed some guys in the offseason for depth. A couple player from the Buccaneers, the lineman from the Buccaneers, and I think someone from the Lions as well. So they have, and they signed the tackle from the Raiders, and also his name slips my mind, but John Runyon from the Packers. I know they signed him as well. So they did go out and they addressed it, and you're hoping that, like I said, John Michael Schmitz, the center that they drafted last year, he takes a big step forward. You still got Andrew Thomas, and we'll see what happens with Evan Neal. But we'll see what they do. And I'll be happy either way, whether they take a quarterback or a wide receiver. But, again, I just said that. Depends on what quarterback they take. I'm not going to have I'm not going to go crazy like some fans will if they take the wrong player in their eyes. But I know that, again, J.J. McCarthy has been trending up. And a lot of people have their doubts on J.J. McCarthy, because he's coming from a team that was loaded and won the national championship, and they ran the ball for 300 yards in the national championship game, almost, around that. And he really didn't do that much. But again, that's just one game. But I'm saying that's just one of the reasons why some people are not that high on J.J. McCarthy, is he's coming from a loaded team. I saw someone in the comments, not on here, but on social media, Zach Wilson 2.0. That's not good. I don't like to hear that. But we'll see. But let me know what you guys think about the Giants. What do you think they're going to do with that first pick? For me, maybe you trade up later in the draft to maybe grab a Michael Penix or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But again, I guess you got to see how the draft flows, and maybe the Giants see an opportunity where they take a playmaker and then maybe they trade up to take a quarterback later in the draft. We'll see. But the other thing I wanted to talk about here is Darren Waller. So he's still undecided about his status for the 2024 season, surveying his options of retirement or playing another year. Waller has played 9 seasons in the NFL, stating he is still in the process of making his decision and wants to ensure he can fully commit to the game before returning. He emphasized the importance of respecting the process and considering the level of commitment required for an NFL season. And, he expressed concern about giving less than 100% if he decides to return, as he believes it would be a disservice to his teammates and the organization. With the Giants in 2023, he had 52 receptions for 552 yards and 1 touchdown in 12 games, dealing with a hamstring injury that caused him to miss 5 games. Waller has a base salary of $10.525 million with $1.275 million in per-game roster bonuses if he decides to play. Giants right now, their tight ends, they got Daniel Bellinger, who Giant fans like, the young tight end, Jack Stoll, and Chris Manhertz as the other tight end options if Waller chooses not to retire. And again, people like Daniel Bellinger in 2022, and he might have to take on a bigger role if Waller does decide to retire. And, the Giants, I liked the trade at the time, but myself and my friends who are Giant fans, we did all kind of say the same thing. He's going to look good, but then he's going to get hurt. And that's exactly what happened. Now, I don't think he looked necessarily good, but, it's not really his fault in some ways, just because the Giants, they just got off to this abysmal start. But still, he only had 1 touchdown before he got hurt. So, wasn't the best acquisition. And I was raving about it because I'm like, this is the best tight end the Giants have had in years. But, I hope he comes back. That would be nice. But if he doesn't come back, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Just because, again, I don't really know how much of an impact he's going to have. Because, again, he just continues to get hurt. But, again, I would welcome his return if he does decide to come back. So, we'll see what happens. But What do you guys think? Do you think Waller is going to retire? Do you think he comes back? Let me know in the comments. So before we go into our second break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will discuss Derek Carr, an Instagram Q&A. We'll talk about that, some of his answers to the Saints 2023 season, some other topics as well. We'll get into all that when we return from our second break of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Derek Carr's Instagram Q&A and some of the things that he had to say. I have an article up from Odyssey.com that kind of just covers what Carr's answers, what he had to say about particular things. So let's get into that here. So one of the things was, so now the Saints have a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, and he said, I'm very excited to work with him. He's a great human being and an even better coach. He works extremely hard, so I'm really looking forward to it. But this is the one thing I wanted to, one of the main things I wanted to cover is, why did the 2023 season end up so disappointing? And this is what he had to say. He said, I think it was just how everything started. You know, we end up losing a few after the first 2 games and a lot of guys getting hurt. And we weren't at our best. So it started off so exciting. We won. And then it started going like this. And then we felt the frustration and all that kind of stuff. So we finished strong. We just didn't finish good enough. So looking forward to another chance at it this year. Can't freaking wait. And yeah, I mean, the Saints, they did win their first game of the year against the Titans. I think the final score was like, what was it, like 16-15? It was like a weird score. It was a close game. And yeah, the Saints, they were kind of just, I mean, the one word to describe them, inconsistent. That's what they were the whole year. You know, Derek Carr had good games and he had bad games. Also got hurt a lot. I mean, the Packers game, they were up 17-0. He has to leave that game. Left the game against the Vikings. It was kind of a mess. And then Derek Carr caught fire at the end of the year. They played really well against the Buccaneers, and then they destroyed the Falcons. They finished 9-8, tied with the Bucs, but unfortunately the Bucs had the tiebreaker, and that's why they made it to the playoffs over the Saints. But you know, if the Saints got in, they probably would have beat the Eagles too. So, and now going into next year, you know, we'll see what happens, but I know there's a lot of people, it doesn't seem like they're that high in the Saints. I mean, the cap situation's not the best. They have an older team, but, I mean, we'll see. The division, I think they'll be competitive in the division. I think their best path is probably going to be trying to win this division. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, Derek Carr, again, was inconsistent, turning the ball over. I mean, the Saints, they would put together good drives, and then you'd have Carr, turn the ball over. He had that interception that Jesse Bates picked off against the Falcons, pick 6, with the Saints driving. It's just, the Saints were a frustrating team to watch. And, they had that comeback against the Lions, but then they still ended up losing the game. So you see the talent on this team. It's just they were inconsistent throughout the year. So, and like he mentioned, guys got hurt. I mean, again, he got banged up as well. So, we'll see what happens now in 2024. But, there's going to be no more Michael Thomas. He's on the free agent market still. So, we'll see what the Saints do. So, also, they do play the Raiders this year, and that was Derek Carr's former team. So this is what he had to say about facing his former teammate, Max Crosby. He said, "I'm looking forward to it. I cannot wait, and hopefully I'm going to start a fight with him and punch him," and this is him joking, "and then have the ref only see him throw his punch back. That's my goal." So that's what he had to say about Max Crosby. Now, the schedule hasn't come out yet, so I mean, we'll see when they end up playing each other. I mean, it's probably going to be like a 4:00 game. Well, where is it? I think it's in Vegas, so it's probably going to be like a 4:00 game, Eastern time, or maybe they throw it on Monday night. We'll see, but that's what he had to say about that. But yeah, I mean, this is a big year for Carr. The Saints, they invested a lot in him. I know I think he took a pay cut this offseason. I think they had to rework, or at least, they somewhat reworked his contract because it's just their cap situation it's been bad for a long time. But also another thing, so he hinted at his interest in playing with a wide receiver already on the Saints roster, likely referring to Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, or A.T. Perry. He was also asked about a receiver outside the Saints organization, and Carr mentioned Hunter Renfrow, who he played 4 seasons with the Raiders. Renfrow is still a free agent after the Raiders cut ties with him. Maybe the Saints bring him in. They need another receiver, but he's still been out there. And yeah, Renfrow, I mean, coming off of a season in 2021, had over 1,000 yards. Then they brought in Devontae Adams, and obviously Devontae Adams is going to get the bulk of the targets. And Renfrow kind of became the forgotten guy in that offense. And then they, the Raiders, they bring in Jacoby Myers. They drafted Trey Tucker. There was no role. They drafted Michael Mayer. I mean, there was really no room for Hunter Renfrow. And they cut ties with him, and now he's a free agent. I think a team should pick him up. I think he could still be good. It's just he was on an offense that it just, with Josh McDaniels, that wasn't his guy. And again, you also have Devontae Adams, so again, he's going to get most of the targets. So, yeah, Renfrow, hopefully he ends up with Carr, because that was, with those two guys together, they were good together. So, again, and I'm also hoping for that because I have Renfrow in my Dynasty League, and I would like his stock to rise back up again so he can become a player for me and not just someone that fills up a bench spot on my team. So there's a little bit of bias there. But I actually do think if he's in a good situation, I think he could still be good. Now, again, I don't know if he's going to be the same player that he was from 2021, but I think it's just lack of opportunities for him. So we'll see what happens. Maybe the Saints, they bring him in. Because, I mean, it does make sense with Carr there, but, again, he's still out there. You still got him out there. You still got Odell Beckham Jr. out there, Tyler Boyd. There's still some names out there when it comes to receivers. So we'll see. I mean, I know the Dolphins are making a push for Odell, and Tyreek Hill, I guess, jumped the gun and thought that the Dolphins were bringing in Odell, and Odell was like, not so fast. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, I mean, again, this is going to be, back to the Saints. Again, for me, I think the best path for them to make the playoffs is through the division because, the Falcons are going to be better. The Buccaneers, again, I want them to be the team that wins the division, but again, right now I look at the Falcons as the favorites. Because if you look at the wild card, I think there's going to be one NFC North team that makes it. It's either going to be the Packers or the Lions because they're going to be duking it out for the division. You got the Eagles and the Cowboys. So one of those teams is going to make it. So you're really going to be battling it out with probably the Rams are going to be one team because I think the 49ers are going to be the team that wins that division. You got them. We'll see. I mean, again, I don't think the Giants and the Commanders are going to be fighting for a playoff spot. So you could have another. The Buccaneers and the Saints will be duking it out for that wild card spot. But, we'll see what the Bears are with the quarterback. The Vikings, I like the Vikings roster, but again, Sam Darnold as the quarterback, I don't know how I feel about that. But again, I think we all think that they are going to somehow, one way or another, draft a quarterback. And that's going to be their long-term answer. Could be J.J. McCarthy, we'll see. But, because they did make that trade with the Texans to move up. So I think they're going to try to move up again, maybe. Unless their guy falls to them. But, again, I like the Vikings roster. It's just right now the quarterback is the issue. And I think if they had Kirk Cousins, then you'd throw them in the mix. But so I guess right now, the Saints and the Buccaneers, they'd probably be, and the Falcons, it's for that third wild card spot. Because, again, I think an NFC East team is going to get it. I think an NFC North team is going to get one. So then it's going to be those teams in the South, I think, battling it out with, I guess, the Rams. And we'll see with the Seahawks. I don't want to count out the Seahawks either. Because, again, Seahawks have a solid roster. But right now, you got Geno Smith and Sam Howell. I honestly think, and I said this before, I think Sam Howell really has a chance to be the starter there. Because he got off to a good start with the Commanders. And then, again, things kind of fell apart there. They only ended up winning 4 games. He was, I think, the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. So it was a rough year for him. But I don't know. I feel like the talent's there, and he's on a better team. So I don't know. Maybe he has a chance to start some games for the Seahawks and really compete with Geno for that starting job. They got a new head coach, obviously. So, we'll see how that translates. But they got a good roster, so I think you're going to have them in the mix as well. So, again, the division is going to be better. Now going back to the Saints. The NFC South is going to be better now with Kirk Cousins there. I think that is your best path, is trying to win the division. But we'll see. But yeah, the Saints were a very frustrating team last year. Also, when it came to my spread pool too, because every week I kept saying, why do I always pick the Saints? And I continued to pick them, and they continued to lose for me. So, but they're a tough team to figure out because, again, they have the talent. It's just they really weren't able to put it together until the end. And you can't really say, well, they can carry that momentum in the next season. You hope they do that, but it's a new year. So, you got to start from scratch. Actually, yeah, the Saints did start off 2-0 because they played the Panthers because they had that Monday night doubleheader, and they won against the Panthers. So, yeah, they were 2-0. Actually, were they 3-0? Let's go back and look. Yeah, because now I remember. Because I know I picked the Panthers, and they backdoor covered, which was nice. Let's see. The Saints, how did they start off the year? They won those 2 games. Then, because then they lost. Oh, nope, that's preseason. Oh, yeah, they would have been 3-0. But the Packers, they scored 18 points in the fourth quarter and won 18-17. So they were that close to being 3-0. And then the Buccaneers went into New Orleans and beat them. Then they won 34-0 over the Patriots. Lost by a touchdown to the Texans. Lost by a touchdown to the Jaguars. That was the Thursday night where Foster Moreau dropped the potential game-tying touchdown. Then they won a couple of games in a row. Beat the Colts. Beat the Bears. lost to the Vikings by 8. Derek Carr got hurt in that game, lost by 9 to the Falcons. Came back against the Lions, but did lose 33-28. Then won a couple games against the Panthers and Giants. They almost came back against the Rams. Not really, but they lost that game, and then they won 2 straight, 23-13 over the Bucs, and then 48-17 against the Falcons in Week 18. And at the end of the game, you had Jamal Williams scoring his first touchdown of the season, and Arthur Smith did not like that and was yelling at Dennis Allen at the end of the game, complaining about it. But Jameis wanted Jamal Williams to get that touchdown. But we'll see what the Saints end up doing in 2024. Again, I mean, I don't look at them as, a top team. I think they're one of those teams that's kind of in the middle of the pack. Division's going to be better. I think that might be the best path for them to make the playoffs. But, now you got Kirk Cousins playing in Atlanta, so it's going to be tougher. It's going to be tougher. And you still got the Buccaneers who brought back everybody. The Panthers, I didn't even mention them, but they're kind of off to the side right now. So, but let me know what you guys think about what Carr had to say. What are your expectations for him and the Saints for 2024? Again, right now I look at them as a middle-of-the-pack team. Let's see what they do in the draft. So, when we come back from our final break of the show, we're going to talk about the UFL. We're going to talk about Jake Bates, the rising star of UFL kicking, as I have the segment title here. That's what we will get into when we come back from our final break of the show. I'll talk about that and just the impact of the UFL in general. So that's what we will discuss when we come back. So, with that being said, for one final time today, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the UFL. I know I said that at some point I was going to do a topic, and I felt like this would be a good topic to do just because Jake Bates has kind of been making headlines. So, right now he's a kicker of the Michigan Panthers in the UFL. And past 2 weeks has made 60-plus yard field goals. So, he first made a 64-yard field goal during the Panthers' opener, followed by another impressive kick from 62 yards this past week. Despite Michigan's loss to the Birmingham Stallions, Bates' kicking prowess has garnered attention with NFL teams expressing interest in him, and I think he should be getting interest because he made back-to-back 60-yarders first 2 weeks of the season in the UFL. Bates' feat of hitting 60-plus yard field goals in back-to-back weeks is rare, even in the NFL, with only one kicker ever doing that, and that was Brett Maher. Before joining the UFL, Bates had not attempted a field goal since high school. He was primarily a kickoff specialist during his college years. Bates briefly attended training camp with the Houston Texans, but did not secure a roster spot. With his impressive performance in the UFL, Bates is gaining recognition and could potentially earn another opportunity in the NFL. And I think he definitely should. Even though, it's small sample size. But, again, back-to-back weeks, you're kicking 60-plus yard field goals. Yeah, teams are going to have interest in you. And I think that's one of the positives of the UFL is, I guess it's kind of like the minor leagues where, although it's not with the specific organization, but it's kind of like the minor leagues where, NFL teams could see, what your abilities are, and, NFL teams have the opportunity to say, hey, this player has talent, give this guy a shot. We'll give this guy a shot. This gives players in this league a chance to show off their talents, and maybe an NFL team recognizes that, and they get a shot in the NFL, which I think is a great thing. And last year you had the USFL, you had the XFL. This year you had the two leagues merge to create the UFL. And hopefully it works out. And I'll be honest, though. I mean, I'm not super invested in it. I was when the XFL came back. I was invested in it. And this was right before the pandemic. And then once COVID hit, and then they brought it back the last couple of years, I really just I haven't really been that interested in it. But Jake Bates has been making headlines. And good for him. And I hope he does get another opportunity. And the Texans, they had him in training camp. But he didn't make the team. You still have, because you got Kaimi Fairbairn kicking field goals for them, and of course, he got hurt in the game against the Buccaneers. So Umbawale, he had to kick the extra point or a field goal, and he made it. I forget whether it was a field goal attempt or an extra point. Regardless, he made it. Yeah, I mean, listen, there are some teams that definitely could use a kicker. I think about the Packers. I mean, Matt LaFleur, what he said about Carlson and how, he would be praying every time he would go to kick the ball. That's not something you want. That's a possibility. Listen, the 49ers I thought could have been a team, but the way Jake Moody played in the Super Bowl, I think they're all right for now. But yeah, I mean, there are teams that need kickers, and Bates here could definitely make an opportunity, or definitely has an opportunity to make a team, which I hope he does. And again, like I said, it's good that players like him and other players in the UFL, if they really show out, they get another chance possibly to maybe latch on to an NFL team, make a team, and live out their dream. So the other thing I wanted to get into as well is the attendance for these games. So April 6th, during week 2 of the UFL season, there were two contrasting attendance scenarios. In Memphis, the attendance was announced as 8,791, despite what appeared to be a sparse crowd. But in St. Louis, for the St. Louis Battlehawks, they set a new attendance record for a modern spring football league game with over 40,000 people, 40,317 people attending at the Dome at America Center. Daryl Johnston, the executive vice president of football operations for the UFL, acknowledged the low attendance numbers in Memphis and attributed them to factors such as late schedule release and less favorable TV slots. Johnston expressed confidence in the league's ability to improve attendance in the future, stating that they are already working on the 2025 season. The Battlehawks' attendance record in St. Louis marked a significant achievement for the team and the league, surpassing their previous record set in March of 2023. The league also received positive news regarding above-average ticket sales for the upcoming game at Audi Field in Washington, D.C., indicating potential growth and the success for the UFL. So, yeah, some things to break down there. So, obviously, they're already planning the 2025 season, so that's good for them if they want to keep this league going. But I think the big thing is you kind of feel for the fans in St. Louis because the Rams were like, all right, we're going to L.A. now, and you left the stadium. Then the XFL comes back. You see, fans are coming out to the game because they got football again, and now you're seeing it again. And that makes you wonder, will an NFL team ever go back to St. Louis? Because you hear the stuff that's going on with the Chiefs, and I know, some of the hosts here on the GSMC Sports Network have covered it. That stuff about the Chiefs potentially moving, Dallas maybe is a possibility. But, I mean, I don't know. I can't see the Chiefs leaving Kansas City. I just can't. But I don't know. Maybe if the NFL expands, maybe another team goes to St. Louis, or maybe a team relocates to St. Louis. It's a possibility. But if you got 40,000 fans going to a spring football league game, I don't know, maybe a team should go to St. Louis at some point. Fans are craving for it there. Craving for some football. I mean, it's good that they're there to support the UFL if this league wants to continue. But yeah, they want football back in their city. And maybe at some point an NFL team does go there. And that would be their new team. Because that was unfortunate that the Rams ended up moving and going out to LA. Because let's be honest. As much as we love, well, I shouldn't say I love SoFi Stadium, but as much as SoFi Stadium is a nice stadium, but they were playing, at another venue before that. They're playing where USC plays, right? And as much as LA is nice, I mean, the Rams, they left the fans of St. Louis high and dry. And also, well, actually, this is what I meant to say. Out in LA, the Rams don't really, and the Chargers don't have home field advantage. I mean, you go and you watch a Rams 49ers game, and the 49ers fans take over the stadium. Matthew Stafford has to use a silent count. Because the 49ers just take over that stadium. The Steelers go in there in 2023. I mean, if you got a fan base that travels and they're playing the Rams, I mean, the fan base is going to take over that stadium. The Rams had a home field advantage in St. Louis, and they go out to LA, and they don't have that. Now, the Chargers, they were playing in San Diego, and then they went to LA, so it really, didn't really make a difference. But for the Rams, they had a home field advantage. And going to play out in LA, now you don't really have that. But the Rams did win a Super Bowl. But imagine if they were still playing in St. Louis and they won the Super Bowl with this team. They would have been going crazy. But that's just what happened. So we'll see. Maybe St. Louis will get a football team. I mean, right now they got the St. Louis Battlehawks. That's what they got. And that's good for the UFL. That they have a team that does bring in a lot of fans. Because that's a city that, again, is craving for football. So that's at least a positive. But, yeah, I just think the UFL in general, it's good. Because, like I said, it gives players an opportunity to show off their talents. And maybe it catches an eye of an NFL team and they find themselves make their way to an NFL roster. Because you saw P.J. Walker, and he was before the XFL, went away because of COVID. P.J. Walker was the MVP of the XFL, and all of a sudden now he ends up on the Panthers, and he's starting games for them and starting games for the Browns most recently. Now again, was he a superstar? And did he become a superstar in the NFL? No, but it gave him an opportunity to get back into the NFL. I don't know if he was in the NFL but he might have been in the NFL previously. But it got him into the NFL. Just as a backup quarterback. And then, had some opportunities to start due to injuries and other things. But, again, gave him an opportunity. So, I think this spring football league, it's good in that respect. And again, it's more football if you want to watch it. Now, again, I don't really have the desire to watch it. I've definitely flipped it on a couple times since it started this year, but yeah, I don't really have that much interest in it. But I think for guys like Jake Bates, this gives them an opportunity for an NFL team to see their abilities, and they have a chance to get into the NFL and make an impact on an NFL team. And Jake Bates could be a guy that finds his way on a team because, again, you make back-to-back 60-yarders, someone's going to notice that. And we'll see if he finds his way on an NFL team because, again, there are some NFL teams that do need kickers, and I did mention the Packers, like I said. But there's definitely other teams as well. So it's good. It's good. And, we'll see how, we'll see if he kicks another one in week 3. Actually, right now, because let me look at the standings, because I do have I did have the standings. My notes. Let me see if I can find it. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't. I might be lying. Actually, let's see. Well, we can go to the UFL website. So I just want to pull that up really quickly in case anyone's keeping up with it. So, yeah, UFL standings 2024. Here we go. So, you got Birmingham. They're 2-0 on the season. And then on the other side, I think it's San Antonio. They're 2-0 on the season as well. You got 4 1-1 teams. The Houston Roughnecks, I think they're still the Houston Roughnecks. They're 0-2. And then you got Arlington's 0-2 as well. St. Louis is 1-1. The DC Defenders are 1-1. But yeah, that's the current standings at the moment. And week 3 this week. So again, just wanted to touch upon this just because I thought it was, a headline and just talk about the UFL and the positives for it. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it from me for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to tune into our other shows, get perspectives on things. Obviously, the NBA season, I've been saying this, that's nearing the end. NHL season nearing the end. So, we're going to get into the playoffs with those. National championship for the men's was last night. UConn winning that over Purdue. It was a good game. First half it was very competitive, and then UConn kind of took over, and they were the best team all year. So they take it back-to-back champs. So you had the Chiefs doing that in the NFL. You got UConn doing that in college basketball. So, and then obviously baseball is in full swing. Yankees are looking good. So I'm happy about that. So, but yeah, make sure to tune into our other shows. And yeah, again, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for tuning in. With that, that is all the time that we have for today. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet.